A poor girl was hired by a billionaire. What happened next shocked the entire family. Emma Rodriguez clutched her worn purse tightly as she stood outside the towering glass building that housed Blackstone Industries. The morning sun reflected off the windows, making her squint as she checked the address on her phone for the third time. She couldn't believe she was actually here, about to interview for a position that could change her entire life. Living in a cramped studio apartment with her younger brother Jake had been tough since their parents died in a car accident 2 years ago. Emma worked 3 part-time jobs just to keep them afloat, but it was never enough. When she saw the job posting for a personal assistant to billionaire CEO Daniel Blackstone, she almost didn't apply. The salary was more than she made in 6 months combined. The lobby was intimidating with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Emma felt out of place in her thrift store blazer, but she straightened her shoulders and approached the reception desk. The woman behind it looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "I'm here for an interview with Mr. Blackstone," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. 11th floor, executive suite. The receptionist replied coldly without looking up from her computer. The elevator ride felt endless. Emma's palms were sweaty, and she kept rehearsing her answers to potential questions. When the doors opened, she was greeted by an elegant woman in her 50s with kind eyes. "You must be Emma. I'm Victoria, Mr. Blackstone's executive assistant. He's waiting for you in his office?" Daniel Blackstone was nothing like Emma had imagined. Instead of the cold, intimidating businessman she expected, she found a man about 30 with tired eyes and stubble on his jaw. He was standing by the window, staring out at the city below. "Mr. Blackstone," Emma said softly. He turned, and their eyes met. For a moment, neither spoke. There was something vulnerable in his expression that caught Emma off guard. "Please, sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "I've read your application. 3 jobs, caring for your brother, putting yourself through night school. That's impressive." Emma blushed. "I do what I have to do. That's exactly what I need," Daniel said, leaning forward. "Someone real? Someone who understands what it means to work hard. I don't need another corporate robot telling me what they think I want to hear." The interview was unlike anything Emma had experienced. Instead of asking about her qualifications, Daniel talked about his struggles with running the company he'd inherited from his father. He spoke about the pressure, the loneliness, and how everyone around him seemed to want something from him. "Why me?" Emma finally asked. "There must be hundreds of more qualified candidates." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "'Cause when you walked in here, you didn't look at me like I was a bank account. You looked at me like I was just another person having a rough day." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. There was honesty in his voice that touched something deep inside her. "The job comes with long hours," Daniel continued. "You'd be helping me with everything from scheduling meetings to picking up my dry cleaning. Some days you might have to work late, and there will be business trips. But the salary is generous, and there are benefits." Emma's mind raced. This job would solve all her financial problems. Jake could go to the college he dreamed of, and she could finally stop worrying about rent and groceries. "When would I start?" she asked. Daniel smiled for the first time since she'd entered the room. "How about Monday?" As Emma left the building that day, she felt like she was walking on air. She had no idea that accepting this job would not only change her life, but also awaken feelings she never knew existed. What she didn't know was that Daniel Blackstone had secrets of his own. Their professional relationship was about to become something much more complicated and beautiful than either of them could have imagined. Emma's first week at Blackstone Industries was overwhelming. She arrived early every morning, determined to prove herself worthy of the opportunity Daniel had given her. The office was a maze of meetings, phone calls, and urgent documents that needed Daniel's attention. What surprised her most was how different Daniel was from the cold businessman she'd expected. He remembered the names of every employee, asked about their families, and never raised his voice even when deals fell through. But Emma noticed the weight he carried on his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened when he thought no one was looking. "Don't have to stay this late," Daniel said one evening, finding Emma still at her desk organizing his schedule for the next week. The office was empty, with only the city lights illuminating the space. I want to make sure everything is perfect, Emma replied, not looking up from her computer. Daniel walked over and gently closed her laptop. Emma, you've been here for 12 hours. Go home to your brother. The way he said her name made her stomach flutter. She looked up to find him standing closer than she'd realized, his dark eyes filled with concern. What about you? She asked. Don't you have someone waiting for you at home? Daniel's expression grew distant. No, just an empty penthouse and take-out menus. Emma felt a pang of sympathy. Despite his wealth and success, Daniel seemed as lonely as she had been before taking this job. Would you like to have dinner with Jake and me tomorrow? The words tumbled out before Emma could stop. Them. I mean, nothing fancy, just homemade pasta and conversation. Daniel stared at her in surprise. You'd want me to meet your brother? He's heard so much about my mysterious boss. Besides, you said you were tired of takeout. The next evening, Daniel arrived at Emma's modest apartment carrying flowers and looking nervous. Jake, a bright 17-year-old with Emma's warm eyes, was initially starstruck, but quickly warmed up to Daniel's genuine interest in his studies and dreams. Emma's told me you want to study engineering, Daniel said over dinner. Jake nodded, enthusiastically. MIT is my dream school, but the tuition is ... Dreams shouldn't have price tags, Daniel said quietly, glancing at Emma. After dinner, while Jake worked on homework, Emma and Daniel found themselves alone on the small balcony overlooking the city. The evening air was cool, and Emma wrapped her arms around herself. Here, Daniel said, shrugging off his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. The gesture was simple, but the warmth of his jacket and the lingering scent of his cologne made Emma's heart race. Thank you for tonight, Daniel said softly. I can't remember the last time I had dinner that didn't involve a business discussion. Thank you for giving me this job, Emma replied. For the first time in 2 years, I'm not worried about paying rent. They stood in comfortable silence, the city sprawling below them. Emma was acutely aware of Daniel standing beside her, the way the moonlight highlighted his profile. Emma, Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. She turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. He reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. This is complicated, he murmured. What is? Emma asked, though her heart already knew the answer. The way I feel about you. Before Emma could respond, Daniel's phone rang, shattering the moment. It was Victoria with an urgent matter that required his immediate attention. I should go, Daniel said reluctantly, stepping back. As Emma watched him leave, she touched her cheek where his fingers had been. The professional boundary between them had shifted, and there was no going back. She was falling for her boss, the billionaire who had shown her kindness when she needed it most. What Emma didn't know was that Daniel was fighting the same battle, trying to reconcile his growing feelings for his assistant with the world he lived in. Neither of them realized that their story was just beginning, and the challenges ahead would test everything they thought they knew about love and loyalty. 3 weeks into her new job, Emma began to notice patterns in Daniel's behavior that troubled her. He worked late into the night, rarely took breaks, and seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. But it was the phone calls that concerned her most. Every Tuesday at exactly 3 o'clock, Daniel would receive a call that would transform him from the confident CEO into someone fragile and broken. He would disappear into his private office, and when he emerged an hour later, his eyes would be redrimmed and distant. Mr. Blackstone, Emma knocked softly on his office door after one such call. Your 4 o'clock meeting is here? Cancel it, Daniel said, without looking up from his desk. Cancel everything for today? Emma hesitated. This wasn't like him. Everything all right? Daniel finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes made her heart ache. Have you ever made a mistake that you could never fix, Emma? Something that haunts you every single day? Emma closed the door behind her and approached his desk carefully. Do you want to talk about it? For a moment, she thought he would shut her out like he did everyone else. But something in her gentle tone seemed to break through his walls. 5 years ago, I was engaged, Daniel began quietly. Her name was Rachel. She was beautiful, kind, and she loved me before I inherited all of this. He gestured around the office, We were planning our wedding when the company started having problems. My father was sick, and I was trying to learn everything while keeping the business afloat. Emma sat down across from him, sensing this was a story he'd never told anyone. I worked constantly, missed dinners, canceled dates, forgot important moments. Rachel tried to be understanding, but I was so consumed with saving the company that I forgot to save our relationship. Daniel's voice cracked slightly. The night before our wedding, she came to my office. She was wearing her rehearsal dinner dress, and she looked so beautiful. She begged me to take just one day off to remember that our love was more important than any business deal. Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched Daniel relive the painful memory. I told her I couldn't, that the company needed me, that we could talk after the merger was complete. She took off her engagement ring, placed it on my desk, and said she wouldn't marry someone who had already chosen his priorities. Daniel, Emma whispered, wanting to comfort him but not knowing how. She was driving home from the office when a drunk driver ran a red light, Daniel continued, his voice barely audible. The doctor said she died instantly. The last words I ever spoke to her were about a business deal. The silence in the room was deafening. Emma understood now why Daniel worked so hard, why he seemed to punish himself with impossible schedules and endless responsibilities. The phone calls on Tuesdays, Emma said gently. Her mother. She calls to tell me about the charity work she does in Rachel's memory, about the scholarship fund. I think she wants me to remember, to never forget what my choices cost. Emma stood up and walked around the desk. Without hesitation, she pulled Daniel into a gentle hug. He stiffened at first, then collapsed against her, years of grief and guilt pouring out of him. It wasn't your fault, Emma whispered, stroking his hair. Accidents happen. You couldn't have known. But I chose work over love, Daniel said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. I made the same mistake my father made, and it cost me everything. Emma pulled back to look at him. Then don't make that mistake again. Their eyes met, and Emma realized the significance of what she'd just said. The air between them crackled with unspoken emotion. Daniel reached up to cup her face. In his hands, Emma, I can't lose someone else I care about. You won't, she promised, though she had no idea what the future held. That evening, Emma stayed late to help Daniel catch up on the work he'd missed. They ordered Chinese takeout and ate it at his desk, talking about everything except the elephant in the room. The connection between them had deepened, but so had the complexity of their situation. As Emma finally prepared to leave, Daniel caught her hand. Thank you, he said simply, for listening, for staying, for not running away when you saw how broken I am. Emma squeezed his hand. We're all broken in some way, Daniel, and the trick is finding someone who fits with your broken pieces. As she walked home that night, Emma knew she was falling deeper. A man who was terrified of love, haunted by loss, and convinced he didn't deserve happiness. But she also knew that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with two broken hearts learning to heal together. The annual Blackstone Industries Charity Gala was the event of the season, and Emma found herself swept into a world of elegant gowns, champagne, and influential people she'd only read about in magazines. Daniel had insisted she attend as his assistant, but when he saw her in the simple black dress she'd borrowed from a friend, his expression told her she looked like so much more. You're beautiful, Daniel whispered, as they entered the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton. Emma blushed, hyper-aware of his hand on the small of her back as he guided her through the crowd. She watched him work the room, shaking hands and making small talk, but she noticed how his eyes kept finding hers across the space. Daniel, darling. A voice cut through the elegant chatter, and Emma turned to see a stunning blonde woman approaching them. She was dressed in a designer gown that probably cost more than Emma's monthly salary, and she moved with the confidence of someone born into wealth. Carolyn, Daniel said, his voice noticeably cooler. I didn't expect to see you here. Daddy's company is a major sponsor, Carolyn replied, her eyes sliding dismissively over Emma before focusing entirely on Daniel. We need to talk. Privately. Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. I'll go check on the auction items, she said quietly, but Daniel caught her wrist. Stay, he said firmly. Whatever Caroline has to say, she can say it in front of Emma. Caroline's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. Oh, how interesting. The help has been promoted to confidant. Carolyn, Daniel's voice carried a warning. Fine, Carolyn snapped. Since she's here, she might as well know. My father and yours had an agreement, Daniel. Merger between our families, not just our companies. We were supposed to be married. After that unfortunate incident with your previous fiancé, remember? Emma felt the blood drain from her face. Daniel's hand tightened protectively around her wrist. That agreement died with my father, Daniel said coldly. I've told you repeatedly that I'm not interested. Your board of directors might feel differently, Carolyn said with a cruel smile, especially when they learn about your little romance with the hired help. How very ... common of you. The threat hung in the air like poison. Emma understood. Immediately, Caroline could destroy Daniel's reputation, create a scandal that might hurt his company and everything he'd worked for. I should go, Emma whispered, trying to pull away, but Daniel held her firmly. No, he said, his eyes never leaving Caroline's face. I'm tired of letting other people's expectations control my life. Before Emma could protest, Daniel turned to face the crowded ballroom. Excuse me, he called out, his voice carrying over. The music and conversation. Could I have everyone's attention, please? The room gradually quieted, all eyes turning toward them. Emma felt panic rising in her chest. Most of you know me as the CEO of Blackstone Industries, Daniel continued, his voice steady and clear. Tonight, I want you to know me as a man who has learned that success means nothing without someone to share it with. He turned to Emma, taking both her hands in his. Emma Rodriguez, you came into my life when I was lost in grief and guilt. You showed me that kindness doesn't require wealth, that love doesn't come with price tags, and that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she realized what he was doing. I love you, Daniel, said, his voice soft but carrying clearly in the silent ballroom. I love your strength, your compassion, and the way you make me want to be a better man. I don't care what anyone thinks about our different backgrounds or circumstances. The crowd erupted in surprised murmurs, but Emma barely heard them. She could focus on was Daniel's face, the love and vulnerability in his eyes. I love you too, she whispered. And Daniel's smile was brighter than all the chandeliers in the room. He kissed her then, gentle and sweet while camera phones flashed around them. When they broke apart, Emma noticed Caroline storming toward the exit. Her plan to use shame as a weapon completely backfired. Later that evening, as they slow danced to the orchestra's final song, Emma couldn't believe how much her life had changed. Are you ready for this? Daniel asked, spinning her gently. The media attention, the gossip, the people who will judge us. Emma thought about her journey from struggling to pay rent to falling in love with one of the city's most eligible bachelors. As long as we face it together. Together, Daniel agreed, pulling her closer. But as they swayed to the music, neither of them noticed the photographer in the corner, snapping pictures that would appear on every gossip blog by morning. Their love story was about to become public property, and the real test of their relationship was just beginning. The morning after the gala, Emma woke up to her phone buzzing incessantly. Bleary-eyed, she grabbed it from her nightstand and nearly dropped it when she saw the headlines. Flooding her news feed, Billionaire CEO declares love for humble assistant. From rags to riches, the Cinderella story that has everyone. Talking Blackstone heir chooses heart over heritage. Her photo with Daniel was everywhere, their kiss captured from every angle. Emma felt a mixture of joy and terror as she scrolled through the articles, some supportive, others cruelly judgmental. Her phone rang, and Daniel's name appeared on the screen. Good morning, beautiful. His warm voice filled her with relief. I hope you haven't been reading the gossip sites. No, late, Emma said, sinking back into her pillows. Daniel, some of these comments are really harsh. Hey, Daniel's voice became serious. Look at me. Emma realized he was video calling her. When she accepted, his concerned face filled her screen. I need you to remember something, he said gently. Their opinions don't matter. The only thing that matters is how we feel about each other. Before Emma could respond, her apartment door burst open, and Jake rushed in, waving his laptop excitedly. Emma, you're famous. My sister is dating a billionaire. He paused, noticing she was on a video call. Hi, Mr. Blackstone. Thanks for making my sister cry happy tears last night. Daniel laughed. You can call me Daniel now, Jake, and thank you for raising such an incredible woman. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emma returned to work to find the office buzzing with excitement and curiosity. Some colleagues were supportive, others whispered behind her back, questioning her motives and qualifications. The real test came during an emergency board meeting called by the company's largest investor, Richard Stonehart, Caroline's father. Daniel Stonehart's voice boomed across the conference room. This publicity stunt of yours is affecting our stock prices. The board has concerns about your judgment. Emma sat in the corner, taking notes as requested, but she could feel the tension in the room. Several board members nodded in agreement with Stonehart's concerns. My personal life has nothing to do with my ability to run this company, Daniel replied calmly. Doesn't it? Stonehart challenged. You're dating an employee with no business background, no connections, no assets to bring to a potential merger. It looks impulsive and irresponsible. Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her eyes on her notepad. Emma, Daniel said suddenly, would you please show Mr. Stonehart the Henderson Industries proposal? Confused, Emma pulled out the file she'd been working on. Over the past month, she'd noticed inefficiencies in their client management system and had quietly researched solutions, creating a comprehensive proposal that could save the company millions. This proposal, Daniel continued, was created entirely by Emma. Her attention to detail and fresh perspective identified problems that our high-paid consultants missed. Her recommendations could increase our profit margins by 15%. The room fell silent as board members examined Emma's work. Stonehart's expression gradually changed from dismissive to impressed. Furthermore, Daniel stood, his voice growing stronger. Emma has taught me something crucial about leadership. She's shown me that the best business decisions come from understanding people, not just numbers. Since she's been part of my team, our employee satisfaction has increased. Okay? Our client retention has improved, and yes, our profits have grown. Emma looked up to find Daniel's eyes on her, filled with pride and love. This company was built by my father and grandfather on the principle that success comes from recognizing talent wherever you find it, Daniel continued. Emma Rodriguez represents everything this company stands for: hard work, innovation, and integrity. The vote was closer than expected, but the board ultimately supported Daniel's leadership. As the meeting ended, Stonehart approached Emma. Ms. Rodriguez, he said grudgingly, that was impressive work. Perhaps I underestimated you. 6 months later, Emma stood in the same ballroom where Daniel had first declared his love. But this time she was wearing her grandmother's vintage wedding dress, carefully altered to fit her perfectly. The intimate ceremony included only their closest friends and family, including Jake, who beamed with pride as he walked his sister down the aisle. You look perfect, Daniel whispered, as she reached him at the altar. What do you? Emma replied, her eyes sparkling with tears of joy. As they exchanged vows, Emma thought about the journey that had brought them together. From a desperate job interview to a love that had conquered every obstacle. Their story proved that sometimes the most unexpected connections create the strongest bonds. I promise, Daniel said, his voice steady and sure, to never let work come before love, to cherish every moment we have together, and to build a life where our dreams can flourish side by side. I promise, Emma replied, to stand by you through every challenge, to believe in us, even when others doubt, and to love you not for what you have, but for who you are. When they kissed as husband and wife, the small crowd erupted in cheers. Jake whistled loudly from the front row, making everyone laugh. Later, as they danced their first dance as a married couple, Emma marveled at how much her life had changed. Any regrets? Daniel asked, spinning her gently. Emma looked around at their guests, at Jake chatting excitedly with Daniel's cousins, at the life they were building together. Only one, she said with a mischievous smile. Daniel's eyebrows rose in concern. I regret not spilling coffee on you during that first interview, Emma laughed. It might have gotten your attention sooner. Daniel threw back his head and laughed, the sound filling Emma with pure happiness. Their love story had begun with a job interview and a leap of faith. proving that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin when we're brave enough to say yes to the unexpected. As they swayed to the music, surrounded by love and laughter, Emma knew that their real adventure was just beginning.